So good afternoon, Year 10. So we're going to start off with some reflection on what happened last lesson. So hopefully if you have a look at those 5 questions, you should be able to answer each of those. So give it a pause and just have a look at those, make sure you can answer them. Put it at the back of your books, just short answers. So the function of the kidney is to produce urine. It produces urine and then passes it out onto the bladder, and it does that in order to remove toxic substances from the blood, like urea. How does urea get from the liver to the kidney? In the blood, in the bloodstream, in plasma specifically. How is it removed? It's removed because it goes through the filter into the kidney and is removed as part of the urine. How does kidney stop large things like blood cells being lost? By filtering things so that large things can't get through the filter. And how does the kidney stop important ions being lost? By actively transporting them back into the blood again. If you didn't know any of those, go back and just watch the relevant minute or two of the video from last lesson. It's really important that we understand that before we do today's lesson. So, today we're doing something really interesting. We're going to talk about how your kidney controls all of this. And it's all to do with a hormone called ADH. So, the question is, what happens if your body doesn't have enough water? And what would the kidney have to do? So have a think about this. So the first one is quite obvious. And that is that we are going to get dehydrated. And that's going to matter because your cells use water for all kinds of important processes, and also because of osmosis. If you don't have enough water in your blood, it causes all of your cells to shrivel up, which is not a good thing. So we have to prevent water being lost at that point. And we do that by your kidney not releasing as much water in the urine. So the urine getting more concentrated. And you can see that this happens. I mean, even if you just don't drink for a few hours, you notice urine will get more yellow and less clear. And this is all controlled by ADH. So, first notes for today: if your body does not have enough water in it, the pituitary gland releases a hormone called ADH. Where's the pituitary gland? I hope everybody can remember that. We should know that that is just inside your skull, underneath your brain. Fine. So pause that, get that note down. And let's talk about ADH. Now ADH, well, there's your pituitary, yes. ADH makes the tubes in the kidney more permeable to water. And what that means is more water can escape and get back into your blood. So you're going to release a load of ADH. ADH is incidentally standing for antidiuretic hormone. A diuretic is a type of chemical that makes you pee. So an antidiuretic hormone will mean that stops you peeing as much, stops the water being released in the urine. So more water is going to be reabsorbed before it gets sent to the bladder as urine, and you're going to lose less water. Fine. Again, take down those notes. We have to know what ADH does. Now, the detailed points of ADH and exactly how it does all that is A-level biology, but that we need to know just that sentence about it. Okay, so that's all we're going to talk about ADH, just 2 slides, and then we'll get on to the interesting bit, which is about kidney failure. And kidney failure is a ridiculously common disease. It can be really, really, really bad for you, and I say ridiculously common, I mean more common than a lot of the diseases we're going to study. You will come across a lot of kidney failure patients in our hospitals, as opposed to some of the diseases we study. Now, it causes all kinds of issues. If you can't remove the urea from your blood, we already talked about that being an enormously dangerous thing. And there are several other toxic chemicals that have to be released in the urine. And so, if the kidneys stop working, they will cause all kinds of problems for you. Now, there are 2 ways to treat this, and that is dialysis and kidney replacement, or kidney transplant. I'm going to talk about dialysis first, which is the more complicated one, and then we'll spend a couple of slides at the end talking about kidney transplants. So, this is the basics of dialysis. Now, let me talk you through this. We actually don't need to know much about this. The bit we need to focus on is the next slide, but I want to take you through an overview for now. So the first thing is that it's a machine, sits next to your bed in a hospital. It's a rather large machine, and what it does is it basically acts as a fake kidney, a kidney outside of your body, a machine kidney. So what happens is all your blood is taken out of your arm, not all at the same time obviously, we wait for a good amount of time, but eventually all the blood's going to come out, go through this little pump, past this anticoagulant. What's anticoagulant? Well, that's some kind of chemical that stops your blood clotting. You don't want your blood to become a solid before it comes back into your body again. So it's going to then go through this little dialysis machine. We'll look at the inside of that next slide. The dialysis machine is going to contain something called dialysis fluid. And then we're going to come out, we're going to check for any air bubbles, which can be really dangerous, and then we're going to send the blood back into your arm again. And to your body, it's like nothing has happened, except that suddenly all of the dangerous chemicals are gone, and you have the right levels of mineral ions and everything. So, this is inside the machine. Now, I want to talk you through this. This is quite complicated. On this side of the machine, on my right, possibly your left, with these blood cells in them, is the blood. Okay? Now, the blood will naturally contain small amounts of urea and glucose and proteins and blood cells. And we need to keep most of that, but we need to lose all of the urea and some of the mineral ions. On the other side is this dialysis fluid, and there is a membrane in between which is semi-permeable. Now, what we have to do is we have to make sure that this fluid contains the correct amount, correct concentration of all of the chemicals in your blood, which are small enough to get through that filter. So, for instance, there is no urea in this dialysis fluid, no urea at all. There's a small amount of urea in your blood. So, if there's no urea in the dialysis fluid, but there is some urea in your blood, what's going to happen? Well, now we need to think back to year 9 and diffusion. The urea will naturally diffuse from the blood into the dialysis fluid. And the thing with the dialysis fluid is it's constantly being pumped away and replaced. So we'll maintain 0 urea in the dialysis fluid, and all of the urea will eventually leave the blood and go into the dialysis fluid by diffusion. Things like water. There is a standard, normal, correct concentration of water in the dialysis fluid. So that if you have too much water in your blood, there will be more water in the blood than the dialysis fluid, so the water will flow out of the blood and into the dialysis fluid. If you have too little water in your blood, then there will be more water in the dialysis fluid than in your blood, and water will flow from your dialysis fluid to your blood by osmosis across that peritoneal membrane. So, this fluid, which has the correct concentrations of all the different chemicals we need, is ensuring you end up with the correct concentrations in your blood as well. Because if there are incorrect concentrations in your blood, either the chemicals will move from your blood into the dialysis fluid, or from the dialysis fluid into your blood. And this word dialysate, incidentally, is just another word for dialysis fluid. Now, we have to be able to explain that in words. You are absolutely welcome to draw that diagram. In fact, much simplified, I probably would. And then, what's the purpose of a dialysis machine and how does it work? Well, can you have a go at writing that out, and then I will give you a kind of an ideal answer. But have a go first, pause me, and write down the answer to that question. So, dialysis is the process of purifying blood using a machine as a replacement for a failed kidney. Works by taking blood out of the body, passing it through a dialysis machine, where substances are exchanged by diffusion with dialysis fluid, removing waste products, and then the blood is then pumped back into the body. And that's all we need to know at that point. And that's a dialysis machine. Now, there are real downsides to dialysis machines for kidney failure patients. Firstly, With dialysis machines, they, as I say, are quite chunky machines. You can't just carry them to work with you, for instance. You're going to have to go to the hospital several times a week for a few hours at a time and literally lay in bed attached to this machine. Downside, of course, to that is it's very difficult to work around things like a job. If you have to regularly take time out to go to the hospital, it can really affect your lifestyle. You can do it for pretty much ever, but as I say, the lifestyle issue is a big one. These machines are also very expensive, and so overall, dialysis is not ideal. It doesn't allow you to have the lifestyle you would want, where you would act like a normal person with a normal kidney. You have to completely change your lifestyle in order to be on a dialysis machine. You also have to change the way you act because of your diet. Because the dialysis machine, you're only on it every few days to a week. In between, you have to change your diet slightly to reduce the amount of toxins that you're going to end up with in your blood. Right, now let's move on to kidney transplant. And this is a question you should definitely know the answer to. It's relevant for what we're about to talk about. So, where are antigens found? Right, so hopefully everyone said A, on the surface of your cells. Now, antigens are those little proteins that stick out of the surface of your cell that your white blood cells know to know which cell is which. So they can go around and feel these antigens and they'll know if it's one of your cells or a bacterial cell or whatever it might be. Now, kidney transplant. Kidney transplant is basically taking a kidney from either a living person or from a very recently dead body and transplanting it back into somebody whose kidneys have failed. Now, there is one huge issue with this, and that is rejection. Now, rejection is where your white blood cells feel the antigens on the kidney and realise it is not made of your cells. At that point to your white blood cell, this may as well be just a giant parasite that is now living inside of you. To their minds, though of course they don't have minds, that is going to be something that needs to be destroyed. And of course, white blood cells can completely destroy things extremely quickly. Now you can solve that by using immunosuppressant drugs. Immunosuppressant drugs are drugs that suppress your immune system, perhaps clues in the name. Massive downside to that. If you suppress your immune system, what's your immune system's job? To prevent you getting diseases. And so what's going to happen is you're going to be much more susceptible to every different kind of disease, from the common cold through COVID to whatever. And a lot of the people who are currently shielding because of the COVID situation are people who are having to take immunosuppressant drugs, because that makes them much more at risk of catching COVID and of dying of it, because their white blood cells are weaker. It also means that you can only do this if you're under close match. There's a really horrible story in the news a few days ago of a mother, both of whose children have kidney failure. Of course, she can only give one kidney because she needs one herself. And that's a horrible decision to make. And she can't find a match for either of her children from anyone else. If you can't find someone who has very similar antigens to you, even immunosuppressant drugs won't do it. You have to find somebody who has antigens that are almost identical to yours. So there are definite downsides. Make sure you've got these notes down. And let's carry on. Now, we're going to stop there just very briefly and talk about the lesson objectives. I usually do marks. Obviously, you're not here with me, so I can't see marks. But broadly, we're going to talk about stating the function of the kidney and how different products are filtered into or out of the urine. We'll explain the health issues associated with kidney failure and how you can use dialysis to prevent this. I'm going to evaluate the positives and negatives of kidney transplant over dialysis. Now, number one, I expect you to definitely be able to do. That's from last lesson. Explaining the health issues associated with kidney failure, that's really from last lesson as well. Talking about urea and the harm it can do to you. Evaluate the positives and negatives of kidney transplant over dialysis. We're just about to do a kind of summary question on that, but broadly, that's just knowing what's good and what's bad about each one. So, a few questions just to finish. There's two questions on the board. Now, think the second bullet point, you could probably save yourself a little bit of time. What I'd like you to do is just give me one positive and one negative for each. You should already have notes on the descriptions. So pause me and do the first one. Just write down what the two types of treatments are, and then positives and negatives for each one. So you should have written dialysis and kidney transplant. Dialysis, the main positive is that it doesn't require any immunosuppressant drugs, and therefore your immune system is fine, and it will also treat your kidney failure. That is a positive. A negative of this is that you have to change your lifestyle in order to be on dialysis. You have to have a particular diet. You have to also be able to attend hospital regularly. Kidney transplant, the main negative is the immunosuppressant drugs you have to take and the fact that you have to have a match for your kidney. The main positives are that you pretty much can have a fairly normal lifestyle. As long as you take your drugs, you can continue to live a perfectly normal lifestyle. There's no need to attend very, very regular hospital appointments, though they will want to check up on you from time to time. And also, again, it does cure your kidney failure, so they both have that positive. Fine. Next questions, make sure we can remember this. What does ADH do in the body? ADH... No, I'll give you the answer. Pause me and I'll give you the answer in a second. So ADH is going to be reducing the amount of water that goes into your urine because it makes the tubes of your kidney more permeable, so water can escape back into the blood. And it is made, the second question, in the pituitary gland. Right, and then we'll finish off like this. Now, there are 9 marks of question there. I'd like you to pause me. I don't think it should take you 9 minutes. The first bit is from your last lesson, and the last 2 bits are from today's lesson. Fine. So, describe how a healthy kidney produces urine. Now, the kidney filters the blood to remove large substances, but filters the blood will do just fine. Then reabsorbs all of the glucose. That word all is very important. You have to absorb all of the glucose. Reabsorbs some of the ions, reabsorbs some of the water, and releases all of the urea in the urine. 5 marks there. Check down them. Which ones did you get? I suspect this all of the glucose may have fooled some people. It is important to know that there should never be any glucose in your urine. In fact, if you have glucose in your urine, it's a good sign of either diabetes, because you might just have so much glucose in your blood that some of it will end up in your urine, or actually kidney failure itself. And then the next question, C part 1, one way of treating kidney failure is with a kidney transplant. Explain why the new kidney may be rejected. 3 marks. Immune system produces antibodies which attack the antigens. So this kind of brings us back to our immune system topic, which we did at the beginning of the year. And it's worth noting they can ask about different topics in different questions. So this question is really about kidney, which is B5, but they're asking about the immune system, which is B3. Now, you have to be able to apply B3 in B5. So hopefully everyone mentioned antibodies. That's the mark I think some people would have left. And then lastly, how can we prevent rejection? Tissue typing, or just finding a match, I'll give you a mark, or treating with drugs that suppress the immune system, or treating with immunosuppressant drugs. Fine. That, I believe, yes, is the end of the lesson. I hope you found that helpful and useful. If there's anything that you're struggling with, you need to contact me and let me know. Okay, have a great day, Eternal. Looking forward to seeing you whenever we are able again.